The Empire was a vast and unchallenged force that spanned the galaxy with an iron grip. Planets rose and fell before its might. Civilizations bowed to its will, and the galaxy's stars shone brightest where the Empire held sway. But in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, in a corner that was often forgotten, there was a small and seemingly insignificant planet called Earth. It was a blue and green orb caught in the gravity of an average star, a planet that most of the Empire's strategists had never bothered to take seriously. For centuries, Earth had been a quiet little world isolated from the greater galactic community. Its people lived without knowledge of the vast universe beyond their home. And to the Empire, that was all the justification it needed to dismiss Earth as nothing more than an inconsequential speck in the grand scheme of things. The Empire's spies had picked up faint signals from Earth over the years, but they had dismissed them as nothing more than primitive communications from a species still struggling to understand their own technology. They had seen the way Earth's civilizations waged war amongst themselves with outdated weapon systems. They had seen the way they struggled to reach the stars. They had seen their primitive rockets and thought nothing of them. They'd assumed the humans on Earth were still a species that had barely scratched the surface of the cosmos, incapable of advancing beyond their homeworld, let alone posing a threat to the Empire's dominance. The Empire had seen it all before: a million worlds with great potential but little capability, and to them Earth was just another one of those worlds, the kind they could wipe from existence without so much as a second thought. The grand imperial armadas had swept through countless systems where their enemies had been little more than insects to crush underfoot, and the Empire's confidence in its superiority had become unshakable. They felt untouchable, and Earth was a world too insignificant to even waste resources on. They didn't even bother to send their most skilled spies to monitor the planet for too long, because why waste the effort on a species so far behind? Yet there were whispers among a few Imperial officers who had studied Earth more closely. They wondered how a species so small and weak could have survived so long in such a volatile universe. What kind of resilience must a people have to survive the numerous wars that had torn apart their own kind? What kind of cunning and ingenuity had driven them to adapt and thrive in the face of overwhelming odds? But these whispers were quickly dismissed as nothing more than curiosity or fear disguised as reason. The Empire had seen many species rise only to fall in time, and Earth's story would be no different. The Empire's leadership remained confident that nothing would threaten their rule, and as the first wave of ships set course for Earth, they did so with the same smug certainty that had carried them to victory across countless worlds. They expected no resistance from a planet whose greatest achievement in their eyes was mastering the art of war on their own soil. They were about to make a grave mistake. While the Empire laughed at Earth's insignificance, the people of the planet were far from ignorant of the threat looming over them. Humanity had watched the stars for generations. Their curiosity was boundless, and their hunger for knowledge was insatiable. For decades, they had studied the signals from the Empire's ships and unknown craft that passed near their solar system. At first, it was only a whisper, but as time went on, humanity realized they were not alone in the universe, and soon enough they began to prepare for the inevitable conflict no one saw coming. Secretly and quietly, the nations of Earth put aside their differences. They recognized the threat that the Empire posed to all life on their world, and with that realization came a newfound unity. The brightest minds from all walks of life were brought together in hidden research facilities scattered across the planet. Earth's best scientists, engineers, and military leaders were assembled with one goal in mind: to build a force capable of defending their home and to strike back if the time ever came. For years, Earth's most advanced technological minds had been studying and reverse engineering the remnants of alien spacecraft that had crashed or been abandoned across the galaxy. Humanity's understanding of the universe was still primitive, but they had made incredible strides. They had unlocked secrets that were beyond their wildest dreams, and from these discoveries they began to create something the Empire could never have anticipated: a fleet of stealth ships far superior to anything the Empire had ever encountered. Earth's engineers developed cloaking technology that could render entire ships invisible to the most advanced detection systems. The Empire had created the stealth ships were not only hidden from view, but also from the most advanced sensors, making them ghost-like in the vastness of space. The ships were equipped with energy weapons that could disable or destroy even the largest of enemy vessels, and they were outfitted with advanced missile systems designed to strike from impossible distances. With deadly precision, these ships were built in secret deep underground bunkers hidden beneath the surface of the planet, where no one could find them. They were the product of years of research and work, and their existence was known only to a handful of people on Earth. Humanity's military had grown beyond the borders of individual nations. It had become a global force that was united in purpose. They trained relentlessly for the moment they would face the Empire, and when that moment came, they would be ready. The soldiers of Earth were not the most physically imposing. They did not have the size and strength of the Empire's forces, but they had something far more dangerous. They had determination, they had the will to fight for their survival, and they had the ingenuity to overcome impossible odds. The fleets of Earth were not just about firepower, they were about tactics. Humanity knew they could not match the Empire's numbers head-on, but they also knew that in the darkness of space, the Empire's arrogance would be their greatest weakness. The stealth fleet was designed to outmaneuver the Empire's ships, using the environment to their advantage, striking quickly and disappearing before the enemy had a chance to retaliate. The battle was not going to be fought on the Empire's terms, it would be fought on humanity's. And so with each passing day, Earth's fleet grew stronger, and its forces more prepared. The time for confrontation was fast approaching, and though the Empire was still blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the small planet, they had underestimated humanity, had made its preparations, and when the Empire finally came to Earth, it would find that it was not the only predator in the galaxy. The Empire's fleet moved with overwhelming confidence. As it approached Earth, their warships were massive and their firepower unmatched. They had no doubts that this would be another simple conquest in their endless campaign to expand their reach. But as the first ships crossed the boundary of Earth's solar system, something unexpected happened. A small scouting vessel sent ahead to survey the planet was suddenly struck by a mysterious force. Before it could transmit any data back to its fleet, the ship's communication systems were abruptly cut off, and its engines were disabled. The vessel drifted aimlessly in the void of space, helpless against the invisible assault that had caught it off guard. The Imperial fleet's commanders were puzzled at first. They had no idea what had just happened. Their sensors had detected no ships, no signs of an attack, but the evidence was undeniable. Their scout ship had been crippled without warning. They sent another vessel to investigate, but this too was swiftly struck and incapacitated without a trace of its attacker. The Empire was growing concerned, but still they dismissed the possibility that Earth could be behind the attacks. They assumed it was a coincidence or some other anomaly that could easily be dealt with. After all, Earth was nothing more than a small primitive world. They thought, how could they possibly have anything capable of such an attack? But then the Empire received a transmission that would change everything. The signal came from Earth itself, and it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The message was simple but chilling. The voice was calm and deliberate, with a tone that carried no fear or uncertainty. It was a warning of sorts. The Empire had been underestimating humanity for far too long, and now it was time to face the consequences. The message was direct and cold: "You've underestimated us." This message hit the Empire like a hammer blow. They had thought humanity was beneath them, weak and incapable of defending itself, much less launching a counterattack. Yet now they were confronted with the fact that Earth had not only fought back, but had done so in a way that no one could have anticipated. The Empire's leadership was thrown into confusion and disbelief. How could this insignificant planet have developed such advanced technology? How could the humans have been hiding such a formidable force for so long? The Empire's commanders scrambled to figure out what had happened, but there were no answers. Their best intelligence officers had been blindsided by the strength and sophistication of the technology they realized with mounting dread that Earth was no longer the target of a simple invasion. It had become a threat, one that needed to be dealt with quickly and decisively. The fleet commander made the decision to deploy their full force, A vast armada of warships equipped with the most powerful weapons the Empire had to offer. They would descend on Earth and crush whatever resistance the humans could muster. They thought that with their numbers and firepower, they could quickly overwhelm any threat. But what they failed to account for was the fact that the humans were no longer the defenseless species they had assumed them to be, and as the Empire's massive warships moved closer to Earth's orbit, a sense of unease spread throughout the Empire's ranks. The battle that awaited them would not be like anything they had ever fought before. And so as the Imperial fleet moved into position for its final strike on Earth, the Empire had no idea that the true war had already begun, and the humans they had dismissed for so long were about to show them just how dangerous they really were. The Empire's fleet finally arrived at the outskirts of Earth's solar system. With overwhelming force, hundreds of warships and carriers stretched across the void. Their sheer size and number filled the space around them like an approaching storm. The command fleet was led by the Empire's flagship, a colossal vessel that served as the heart of their operations. The fleet's commanders were confident that nothing could stand in their way. They expected Earth's defense to be non-existent, and their first assault would be swift and decisive. They prepared to launch their final attack against a planet they believed to be nothing more than an insignificant target. What the Empire did not know was that Earth's forces had been waiting for this very moment. The stealth ships of humanity's secret fleet were already in position, scattered across the far reaches of the solar system, hidden from view by the advanced cloaking technology that had been developed over the years. Humanity's ships were like shadows in the dark, waiting for the Empire to make its move. As the massive Imperial fleet drew closer to Earth, the stealth ships powered up their weapon systems and prepared to strike. The first attack came without warning. The Empire's lead ship was the first to fall. Its shields flickered and collapsed in an instant as a missile from nowhere struck its side. The blast sent the ship veering off course, its hull torn apart in a flash of light. The Empire's fleet commanders scrambled to make sense of what had just happened, but there was no time to react. Another blast hit a second ship, sending it spiraling into the void. The Imperial fleet was in chaos as ships tried to locate their attackers, but there was nothing to see. No sign of the enemy, no trace of where the strikes were coming from. The stealth ships of Earth's fleet were masters of surprise. Their advanced cloaking systems made them invisible to the Empire's sensors, and the tactics they used were beyond anything the Empire could anticipate. The ships attacked in bursts, their weapons striking with deadly accuracy, before vanishing again into the depths of space. The Empire's warships fired blindly into the void, hoping to hit something, but all they could do was waste precious time and energy in a futile attempt to fight an enemy they could not see. As the battle raged on, the Empire's forces found themselves increasingly disorganized and vulnerable. They had expected to crush Earth's defenses with ease, but instead they were being picked apart piece by piece. Their once pristine fleet was now a shattered mess, with no clear leadership or direction. The Empire's commanders realized too late that they had miscalculated humanity's strength and the full scope of their capabilities. The Empire's response was panic. They sent wave after wave of reinforcements to try to stop the relentless assault, but each new ship was greeted with the same deadly precision. Humanity's stealth ships continued to strike without mercy, targeting weak points in the Empire's fleet and causing havoc wherever they could. The Empire's numbers were slowly but surely whittled down as each attack left them weaker than before. And yet, despite the damage, the Empire continued to underestimate humanity. They refused to believe that a species so small and primitive could be capable of such an organized and effective attack. They held on to the illusion that their strength would eventually overwhelm the humans, but with every passing moment they were being proven wrong. The Empire's fleet was in full retreat, but they still had no idea how to stop the invisible enemy that was dismantling them piece by piece. The Empire's leadership was thrown into a state of confusion and panic. They had never experienced anything like this before. Their military was supposed to be the most advanced in the galaxy, their fleets the pinnacle of technology and strength, yet here they were under attack from a foe they could neither see nor understand. With every passing minute their ships were falling, their coordination crumbling, and their sense of invincibility shattering. Communications were a mess as panic spread across the Imperial ranks. Commanders barked orders, but the messages were often lost or garbled in the chaos of battle. Even their most experienced officers were struggling to keep control of their ships, and their forces were scattered across the solar system, unsure of what to do or where to strike. They had been outwitted and outmaneuvered by an enemy they had dismissed as nothing more than a curiosity. The Empire's finest engineers had designed their fleet to be unbeatable. Their ships were equipped with the latest weaponry and the most sophisticated sensors, yet nothing could help them detect the hidden enemy that was slowly picking them apart. Their weapons fired into empty space, and their sensors swept the area for any sign of an attacker, but it was all for nothing. The stealth ships of Earth's fleet remained undetected, and the Empire's vessels were left vulnerable to attack. Desperation began to set in as the Empire's commanders ordered their remaining ships to fire at random in an attempt to force the invisible enemy to reveal itself. But the human fleet was too clever for such tactics. Their ships remained undetected and continued to strike with deadly precision from the shadows. The Empire's flagship was among the first to take a direct hit. A massive explosion rocked its hull as a missile pierced its defenses. The flagship lurched as alarms blared throughout its corridors. The crew scrambled to contain the damage, but the impact had already caused irreparable harm. Their systems were offline, and their communications were severed for a brief moment. The flagship was effectively blind and deaf to the rest of the fleet. This sent shockwaves through the entire Imperial fleet. The flagship was the heart of their command structure, and without it they were leaderless. The Empire's admirals and generals watched in disbelief as their forces disintegrated around them. Their once formidable fleet was now reduced to a disjointed mess as panic and fear began to spread like wildfire. The Empire's soldiers were not accustomed to failure. They had been bred to believe in their superiority, but now they were facing something they had never expected: a foe that refused to be defeated. The Empire's response was to double down on its efforts, sending more reinforcements to the front lines, desperate to regain control. But each new wave of ships only suffered the same fate as the ones before them. Their weaponry failed to connect, and their numbers dwindled with every passing moment. A growing realization began to spread through the ranks of the Empire. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. And no matter how much the Empire tried to regroup, it was becoming clear that their once unbeatable might was crumbling under the pressure of an invisible enemy that had outsmarted them at every turn. The Empire's commanders began to question everything they thought they knew about their enemies and about themselves. What had once seemed like an easy conquest was now a fight for survival. As the Empire's arrogance gave way to fear and doubt, they began to wonder if they had underestimated Earth in a way they would never be able to recover from. As the Empire's forces continued to crumble, Earth's fleet pressed on with relentless precision. The stealth ships darted through the void, striking at the heart of the Imperial fleet before disappearing back into the darkness of space. Each blow was a calculated act of defiance. Every missile that hit an Imperial vessel was a symbol of humanity's refusal to be subjugated. The humans had spent years preparing for this moment, and now that the Empire had finally come to their doorstep, they were showing the full extent of their resolve. On the surface of Earth, the world's leaders watched as their fleet fought back against the Empire's overwhelming power. Every victory brought cheers and hope, but there was also a sense of caution. The humans knew that this battle was far from over, and while they had the advantage of surprise, they also understood that the Empire would not stop until they had wiped out all resistance. The leaders of Earth had made a decision early on that they would never surrender. They had chosen to fight not just for survival, but for their future, for the freedom of every person on their world, and for the very essence of humanity itself. The people of Earth had come together as one to face a threat unlike any they had ever known, and they had done so without hesitation. Despite the successes of their stealth fleet, humanity knew that the Empire was not going to simply retreat. They were not going to give up so easily. The Empire would regroup and come back with an even stronger response, and Earth's forces would have to be ready for whatever came next. The humans knew the war had only just begun. Back in space, the Imperial fleet was in disarray, but it was not without a plan. The Empire's surviving commanders were far from defeated. They began to adapt. They had realized that their old strategies would not work against the humans, and they quickly began to adjust their tactics. They redeployed their remaining ships into tighter formations to prevent further hits from the invisible enemy, and they began to send out drones and unmanned probes in an attempt to detect any hidden attackers. But the humans were prepared for this as well. Their stealth ships had already anticipated the Empire's countermeasures, and they continued to outsmart their opponents at every turn. Even as the Empire adapted, so did humanity. They had no intention of allowing their enemies to regroup or gain an upper hand. The battle was about intelligence and adaptability, and humanity was proving to be more than capable of outthinking the Empire's forces. Meanwhile, Earth's military leaders were coordinating their forces with unshakable focus. They knew that their fleet could not stand alone against the full might of the Empire. They had prepared ground forces, as well as a network of defense stations and missile silos was spread across Earth's surface. In case the Empire attempted a direct assault, the planet's defenses were ready to hold against any invasion. The Empire had underestimated Earth's determination, but the humans would not make the same mistake the Empire had made. They understood that this was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the future of their species. The will to win was in every soldier, every engineer, every leader, and every citizen on Earth. They knew that the fate of their planet and their future depended on their resolve, and they were willing to fight to the last breath to protect it. The Empire's leadership had finally realized the full scope of the disaster they were facing. No longer did they believe they could simply crush humanity with brute force. Their fleet was in tatters, and the reinforcements they had sent were being systematically destroyed. The Empire's war machine had faltered in the face of an unexpected enemy, and now their once mighty Armada was on the verge of collapse. The commanders of the Empire knew that if they did not act quickly, Earth's forces would finish what they had started, and the Empire would be reduced to nothing. Desperation set in, and the Empire's supreme leaders made a final desperate decision. They would marshal every last resource and deploy the full might of their remaining forces in one final assault. They called for all ships to converge on Earth, with the intention of surrounding the planet and cutting off any chance for escape or reinforcements. They would force humanity into a corner and finish the battle once and for all. As the Imperial fleet moved to form up, the atmosphere across the galaxy shifted. The Empire's commanders were no longer the confident leaders who had launched the attack on Earth. They were now desperate survivors fighting for their very existence. The fleet was battered but still dangerous. The Empire's ships were armed with weapons powerful enough to turn entire continents into ash, and they intended to unleash that power on Earth with overwhelming force. On the surface of Earth, the leaders of humanity prepared for the worst. The reports of the Empire's reinforcements coming into range were confirmed, and the feeling of tension spread across the planet. But the humans were resolute. They had come this far, and they would not retreat now. Every available resource was being funneled into the defense of the planet. The stealth ships of Earth's fleet remained hidden for the moment, but they were not idle. They were gathering their remaining strength for the final push. Humanity's forces knew that they had to hit hard and fast if they were to have any chance of holding their ground against the Empire's last attempt at conquest. The final confrontation would not be decided by numbers or strength, but by strategy and willpower. The humans had the advantage of knowing their enemy's weaknesses, and they had learned to adapt quickly to the Empire's tactics. Earth's military had become a finely tuned machine, their forces no longer just reacting to the Empire, but taking the fight to them with a focus and determination that had never been seen before. As the Imperial fleet began its assault on Earth's outer defenses, the first strike was unlike anything the humans had faced before. The Empire unleashed a massive barrage of firepower aimed directly at the planet's surface. Entire cities were wiped out in the blink of an eye. The Earth trembled under the weight of the assault, and the skies were lit with the flames of destruction. But humanity did not buckle. They fought back with everything they had. The stealth ships emerged from hiding in full force, their missiles launched with pinpoint precision, targeting the Empire's weakened vessels with devastating effect. They struck the flagship, first a single blow that sent shockwaves through the Imperial ranks, and for the first time in the entire conflict, the Empire's forces began to retreat. The humans had once again proven that they were not to be underestimated. The final stand had begun. The Empire's ships fired wildly into the void, trying to retaliate, but they were no match for the relentless strategy and adaptability of Earth's forces. The humans fought like they had nothing left to lose, because in their eyes they had nothing to lose. The Empire's last assault was met with fierce resistance, and the Empire's grandest fleet was slowly but surely falling apart. The final battle had reached its breaking point. The Empire's once proud fleet was now a shattered remnant. Its commanders were stunned by the relentless resistance. They faced their massive warships, which had once seemed invincible, were now limping through the void, damaged and crippled, their firepower no longer enough to intimidate the humans who had fought so fiercely to protect their home. The Empire's retreat was no longer a question of if but when. As Earth's stealth ships continued to strike with precision, the Empire's once thriving fleet was reduced to floating wreckage, scattered across the stars. The human forces had turned the tables completely. No longer were they the underdogs, no longer were they the ones on the defensive. The Empire had underestimated humanity in every possible way, and now they were paying the price for that arrogance. The Empire's commanders realized they had made a grave mistake by underestimating their enemy. They had thought that humanity would crumble under the weight of their superior numbers and firepower, but they had failed to account for the indomitable spirit of the human race. The determination to survive and protect the future of their species had become their greatest weapon. The Empire had never seen anything like it, and now they were beginning to understand the full extent of their failure. On Earth, the world watched as the final moments of the battle unfolded. Every victory brought more hope, and yet there was also a quiet resolve. The people of Earth knew that even though the Empire was retreating, they had not yet won. They understood that this was just the beginning of a long and uncertain future. But one thing was clear: humanity had proven its strength and resilience in a way no one could deny. The Empire's remaining ships began to fall back as Earth's forces closed in on them. One by one, the once imposing Armada was now just a shadow of its former self. Every ship that turned to flee was another victory for humanity. Every wreckage that drifted into the void was a symbol of the Empire's defeat. Humanity had not just survived, they had triumphed over an empire that had believed it could never be challenged. As the Empire's forces retreated into the darkness of space, the people of Earth let out a collective sigh of relief. They had fought for their survival, and they had won, but the cost had been great. The scars of the battle would remain for generations to come. Entire cities had been destroyed and countless lives had been lost. But in the end, humanity had stood strong against an invincible foe and had emerged victorious. The Empire had learned a hard lesson that day. It had underestimated humanity, and in doing so it had sealed its own fate. The retreat of the Empire marked the beginning of a new era for Earth. The humans had proven they were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never forget the day the Empire's arrogance had been shattered by a species that had once been dismissed as insignificant. But for the people of Earth, the victory was bittersweet. They knew that this battle was only the beginning of their journey. Their victory over the Empire was just the first step in a much larger struggle to shape their future and ensure the survival of their species. For the first time in history, humanity had found its place among the stars, and the universe would never be the same again.